This is MTG Burgeoning, and in this video we are going to update and upgrade our Garth One Eye Artifact Tokens Matter EDH deck. Welcome and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Up and Up series. Today it's Garth One Eye, and in the description of this Garth One Eye video, you'll find a link to this build's deck tech. You'll find a link to this build's up-to-the-moment deck list, as well as a link to this build's video primer series. We have 4 cards going into the 99, which means 4 cards are coming out, and we're going to kick things off right away with Senator Peacock. Now, Senator Peacock is coming from the Clue Ravnica edition. She's a legendary human advisor, 3/4 for 3 and 2 blue mana, and artifacts we control are clues in addition to their other types, and of course they'll have pay 2 generic mana, sacrifice this artifact, and draw a card. And whenever we sacrifice a clue, target creature can't be blocked this turn. We are starting to formulate a slight clue sub-theme in this Artifact Tokens Matter build. We do have other ways to create clues, and we do have other clue synergies, and Senator Peacock is going to help synergize with those synergies. And if that's too much repetition for you, well then you can send a complaint to the Redundancy Department of Redundancy. With Senator Peacock going into the 99, it's going to replace Galazeth Prismari. Now here we had a legendary Elder Dragon, 3/4 for 2 and Izzet colors. Of course it flies, and when it comes into play we would create a treasure token, and it gives artifacts we control the ability to tap to add 1 mana of any color, and then we would spend this mana to cast an instant or a sorcery spell. Alright, couple things with Galazeth. It coming into play creates a treasure, but then that's it. It creates no other artifact tokens. It does allow artifacts we control to tap for 1 mana of any color, but we can only use this mana to sling a spell, which means we're going to only use it to cast an instant or a sorcery. At this moment right now, the number of instant and sorcery cards in this deck is only 18. So 18 of the 99 cards in this deck are going to reap the benefits of our artifacts that are getting the mana enhancement from Galazeth. That is not enough. I would rather replace Galazeth with its less than 20% synergy with the things we're doing in this deck to allow Senator Peacock to come in and give a much more impactful ability to all of the artifacts we control, because they'll all turn into clues, which we can do other things with other than just other than just paying 2 and sacrificing them to draw a card, where Galazeth Prismari only allows us to use the mana generated by the artifacts to cast 18 spells. Galazeth is good, just not good enough for what we're doing in this build, so Galazeth is yielding to Senator Peacock. Alright, the next card going into the 99, it is Merchant of Truth. Here we have a 2/5 Angel Detective for 2 and 2 white mana, and of course since it's an angel, it's going to fly. Whenever a non-token creature we control dies, we investigate. So we have quite a number of non-token creatures in this deck that might be dying once or twice, so we will be able to create some clues from their demise. In addition, clues we control have Exalted, so that means that whenever a creature we control attacks alone, that creature is going to get +1/+1 until end of turn for each instance of Exalted among permanents we control. If we have 10 clues and they each have Exalted, then if a creature that we control attacks by itself, it's getting +10/+10 until end of turn. Maybe more of our opponent's creatures will meet their demise than ours will in this deck. So Merchant of Truth, with its ongoing continuation of clue shenanigans, see Senator Peacock for that, is going into the 99, and it is going to replace Fey Offering. Now here we have an enchantment for 2 and a green mana. At the beginning of each end step, if we've cast both a creature spell and a non-creature spell this turn, we create a clue, a food, and a treasure token. So it's inordinately difficult to pull this off during one of our opponent's turns, of course. And for us, it might seem like it would be easier to do that than not, but in all honesty, having Fey Offering on our side of the battlefield, at least experientially for the number of times that I've had it on my side of the battlefield, it goes untriggered more often than it triggers. So my thought process is, for 1 additional mana, this being a mana value of 3, and the Merchant of Truth being a mana value of 4, for 1 more mana, I think we might get a bigger impact on what we're trying to do with our deck, especially because it synergizes with Clue. We still can create Clue tokens when non-token creatures we control die, and having the Clues have Exalted, well, that's going to be very helpful as well, particularly from a combat standpoint. So instead of the passivity of Fey Offering, let's be a little more aggressive with Merchant of Truth. All right, the next card going into the 99 of this deck, it's going to be, there it is, yes, the Arcbound Condor. Here we have a bird with flying, 0/0 for 2 and 2 black mana. It has modular 1, which means when this creature ETBs, we put a +1/+1 counter on it, and when it dies, we may put that +1/+1 counter onto another target artifact creature. More importantly for our build here is whenever another artifact enters the battlefield under our control, target creature an opponent controls gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So with this bird on our side of the battlefield and the numerous instances we have of creating artifact tokens, remember it says another artifact. It does not say another non-token artifact. So our token artifacts will trigger Arcbound Condor, which will allow us to remove many creatures on our opponent's sides of the battlefield, and that's just going to be aces for us, but not so much for our opponents. With the Arcbound Condor going into the 99, it's going to replace... This one hurts a little bit, folks. This one hurts. Blasphemous Act. One of my all-time favorite removal spells, and usually card number 1 whenever I begin to build a deck that has red in its color identity. We all know what Blasphemous Act does. 13 damage to each creature. We're never paying 8 and 1 red mana because this spell's mana value is reduced by 1 generic mana for each creature on the battlefield. Here's the thought process here. With our suite of removal spells pretty strong in the 99 already, we were able to slightly weaken our removal spells for the purposes of adding another win condition, that being Arcbound Condor. So by slightly weakening our suite of removal, we bring a stronger, impactful card into the mix, hoping that we're able to have another win condition at our fingertips to clinch the game much sooner. And I will be keeping an eye on how often we may need to have a mass removal spell in our hand whenever we're sitting down with Garth at the EDH table. And if all things proceed as I'm hoping they will, then Blasphemous Act will not be missed. However, if we need to come back to the Up and Up series to find a place to put Blasphemous Act in, you better believe we will do that, and we will not hesitate to do so. Keeping our fingers crossed that the extra win condition will more than make up for losing one of the best removal spells in the format. All right, next card is the last card going into this Garth deck, and that is going to be Fountain Port. Here we're adding a land. Yeah, we're going to change up one of the lands here. This land was made for token decks. It taps for a colorless mana, which you would think would be difficult with us running a 5-color deck, but we are not worried with mana fixing, not in this build at all. So we can tap for a colorless mana, we can pay 2 generic mana and tap it to sacrifice a token and draw a card. That's wonderful. That pretty much is a clue. Pretty much paying 2, sacrificing a clue to draw a card. We can pay 3 generic mana, tap it, and pay 1 life to create a 1/1 blue fish creature token. Now, creature tokens are not really this deck's bag, we're looking more for the artifact tokens than we are the creature tokens. And there it is, the last ability of this land, pay 4 generic mana and tap it to create a treasure token. So here we're getting some synergies with our land, particularly when it comes to creating our artifact tokens, in addition to utilizing our tokens to draw a card. With Fountain Port going into the land base, a land has to come out, and that land is going to be Reliquary Tower. Here we have no maximum hand size, and it taps for a colorless mana. I am surprised if you are surprised that this land is coming out, considering all of the things that we can do by drawing cards. Well, peruse the 99 of this build. Outside of our clue synergies, we have very few mass or burst card draw spells and abilities. The most notable would be Shimmer Dragon. So having more than 7 cards in our hand and keeping them doesn't really come into play too often, which makes Reliquary Tower an expendable land and allowing us to easily yield to adding Fountain Port, which, let's be honest, synergizes with what we're trying to do in this Garth build so much better. All right, there you have it, MTG BC. Moving the camera here a little bit. Looks like we were a little off center. All right, there you have it, MTG BC. We added 4 cards to the Garth One Eye Artifacts Token Meta Deck and took 4 cards out. Let me know your thoughts about these changes in the comment section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.